Karen wants to shoot me for being blind. She was taken down by a K9 unit fast. The gunshot cracked through my cul-de-sac before I even heard her footsteps coming. I'm blind. I never saw the barrel. I only felt the wind of the bullet. Seconds later, a K9 unit slammed her into the pavement like she weighed nothing. Her name is Deborah Whitfield. HOA president. My neighbor. The woman who tried to kill me. 6 months earlier, none of us knew it would end with her screaming under a police dog. My name is Marcus. I lost my sight 4 years ago in a workplace accident. I moved to Fairview Meadows because the listing said, quiet, accessible, welcoming community. It was a lie dressed up in a homeowners association brochure with a smiling sun logo. Deborah ran that HOA like a queen running a kingdom nobody elected her to rule. I didn't know that yet. I just wanted a fresh start near my sister, Renee. My guide dog, Scout, a golden retriever, learned the block faster than I ever could. The first week, Deborah knocked on my door holding a clipboard like a weapon. Your mailbox flag is the wrong shade of white, she said, not even a hello first. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She was not joking. She never joked. Fairview Meadows had 400 rules. Deborah had memorized every single one by heart. Rule 14b, mailbox posts must be painted Cloud Whisper, not antique white. I didn't know the difference. Neither did the paint store, honestly. But Deborah's word was law inside those gates. Renee warned me. That woman fined the Petersons for a birdbath. Watch yourself, Marcus. I didn't want trouble. I wanted quiet mornings, coffee on the porch, Scout's paws on grass. Deborah wasn't even elected HOA president. She'd appointed herself after the last one quit. Nobody challenged her because nobody had the energy. I would soon learn otherwise. My lawn grew a half-inch too long one humid week. A notice appeared taped to my door. Violation, grass exceeds 3 inches. Fine, $75. No knock, no warning, just paper and shame. I hired a lawn service the next day. Deborah found something new to complain about instead. My cane, she claimed, was an unsightly obstruction left on my own porch railing. I explained I was blind. She said that wasn't an HOA exemption category. Cruel and absurd. Scout's service dog vest apparently violated the no visible animal equipment aesthetic guideline. I couldn't believe it. I started recording our conversations after that. Something told me I'd need proof one day. My neighbor Faye, an elderly widow, whispered that Deborah had driven 3 families out already. She finds your weakness, Faye said, and she squeezes until you leave on your own. I wasn't leaving. I'd already lost my sight. I wasn't losing my home too. Deborah demanded I remove a small ramp built for my wheelchair-bound father's visits. Not approved by the architectural committee, she sniffed, holding up her endless clipboard again. 2 committee members later told me, off the record, they'd never even seen my ramp request. The committee vote against my ramp had happened in a meeting that never occurred. I filed my first written complaint to the HOA board. Deborah intercepted and buried it herself. My blood pressure climbed. Renee told me to fight smart, not angry. I listened, mostly. I bought a hidden recorder disguised as a keychain. Small. Legal in my one-party consent state. Every knock, every notice, every snide comment, I began archiving it all in a locked folder. Deborah cornered me at the mailbox, hissing that blind people shouldn't own property here. I stayed calm. Scout growled low, sensing my tension before I even registered my own anger. That's discrimination, I said evenly. She laughed and said, prove it, Braille boy. My recorder caught every syllable. That single sentence would matter more than she ever imagined. I contacted a disability rights attorney named Priya Anand. She listened. She didn't laugh at me. Fair Housing Act protections, Priya said, cover HOA harassment based on disability. You have a case. We began building a paper trail, photos, timestamps, recordings, witness names, every fine, every insult. Deborah, unaware, kept escalating, confident nobody in Fairview Meadows would ever truly push back. For 2 quiet weeks, no notices came. I almost believed she'd backed off. Faye told me Deborah was just regrouping. Predators don't retreat. They recalculate their next attack. I used the comm to install exterior cameras, all pointed toward my porch and driveway. Priya filed a formal fair housing complaint on my behalf with documented evidence attached. Deborah found out through a leak on the board. Her retaliation, I'd learn, came fast and vicious. She called an emergency board meeting, agenda item, resident Marcus, repeated violations. I attended with Scout and my recorder. 12 neighbors packed the room, murmuring nervously. Deborah presented a fabricated list: unpaid fines, aggressive dog, harassment of board members. All lies. I calmly played my recordings. The room went dead silent at "Braille boy, prove it." The HOA secretary, Linda, quietly slid me a folder after the meeting ended. Inside were years of Deborah's falsified minutes, forged signatures and secret slush fund transactions. Linda whispered, "I've hated this for years. I just needed someone brave enough to start." Renee hugged me that night. "You're not fighting alone anymore, Marcus. Remember that." Deborah, cornered, doubled down instead of retreating like any sane person would. She filed a restraining order against me, claiming I'd threatened her with my service dog. Scout, gentlest dog alive, was suddenly painted as a dangerous weapon in her paperwork. The judge scheduled a hearing. I felt fear crawl up my spine for the first time. Priya reassured me. Bogus filings collapse under real evidence. We have plenty. Stay steady. I gathered character witnesses, Faye, Linda, even the mailman who'd seen Deborah's harassment firsthand. Deborah, meanwhile, quietly began pressuring Linda to resign before she could testify against her. Linda refused. I've held her secrets long enough. I'm done being scared of Deborah Whitfield. Linda revealed Deborah wasn't even a licensed board member per the original bylaws. Her presidency had technically expired 18 months earlier. She'd simply never told anyone. The restraining order hearing arrived. Deborah wore pearls and practiced tears like a performance. Her lawyer argued Scout was unpredictable. My lawyer played security footage of Scout ignoring squirrels calmly. The judge dismissed the case in 11 minutes flat. Deborah's mask cracked, just slightly, publicly. Outside the courthouse, a local reporter named Sadie approached me with a business card. "I've been investigating Fairview Meadows for months," Sadie said. "Would you talk on record?" I hesitated. Going public meant no turning back. Deborah would see it as war declared. Renee squeezed my hand. "She already declared war, Marcus. You're just picking up the phone." I said yes. Sadie's article dropped online 3 days later, The Tyranny of Fairview Meadows HOA. Deborah went silent for a week, likely consulting lawyers of her own, planning retaliation. Faye told me 2 more families had quietly reached out, wanting to share their own stories. Deborah tried banning service animals entirely, disguised as a pet policy update. The proposed rule required all dogs be kept indoors except for bathroom breaks, no exceptions listed. That would have made Scout, my guide dog, functionally illegal on HOA sidewalks entirely. Priya sent a cease and desist letter citing federal disability law within 48 sharp hours. Deborah, cornered again, quietly withdrew the proposal but publicly blamed confused legal misunderstanding instead. Strange withdrawals from the HOA's Community Maintenance Fund, unexplained. Linda confirmed it. Deborah had been funneling money into a shell landscaping company she secretly owned. The landscaping company barely existed, just a P.O. box and an invoice template. I forwarded everything to Sadie and to the county district attorney's fraud investigation unit. Deborah, sensing the walls closing in, grew erratic, showing up uninvited at my house twice. She began photographing me and Scout obsessively, building her own twisted evidence. One evening she screamed at me across the yard, "You'll regret ever moving to my street." I recorded that too. My folder of evidence was thickening into something undeniable and damning. Deborah's husband, Gerald, quietly contacted me, apologizing, admitting he'd wanted to leave her for years. "She controls everything," Gerald said. "The HOA is the only place she still feels powerful." That detail humanized her for one fragile moment, before her next move crushed any sympathy. Deborah filed a complaint claiming Scout had bitten a child on our street. Total fabrication. The child's mother, horrified, publicly denied it, saying Deborah had asked her to lie. Sadie's follow-up article exposed the fraud, the fake vote, everything, all at once. Deborah's name trended locally. Comment sections filled with former residents sharing their own horror stories. The county DA announced a formal investigation into HOA financial mismanagement under Deborah's presidency. Deborah, desperate, demanded an emergency vote to expel me from the community entirely. She needed 60% approval. She got barely 20, humiliated in front of the whole board. Linda revealed Deborah had forged past votes for years to always win unanimously. The board, furious, voted to strip Deborah of all remaining authority immediately, effective that night. She refused to leave the meeting room, shouting that, "This community is nothing without me." I felt something unexpected, not triumph, but a strange, hollow pity for her collapse. Renee reminded me not to soften now. "She tried to erase you. Finish this, Marcus." Deborah, stripped of power, grew reckless, showing up drunk to my property late one night. Scout barked a warning I'd never heard from him before. Something was very wrong. I called Renee, then dialed 911, hands shaking as Deborah pounded on my front door. "You ruined me," she screamed. "I built this community. I built everything here, Marcus." I stayed inside, recorder running, praying the police would arrive before she did something drastic. Deborah had a legally registered handgun in her purse, taken from Gerald's nightstand earlier. She'd told a neighbor days before, "If I go down, that blind man goes with me." That comment, recorded by a doorbell camera, would become the most damning evidence yet. Deborah began fumbling at my unlocked side gate. I stood frozen in my hallway, Scout pressed against my leg, both of us trembling together. "Deborah, stop." Gerald's voice rang out from the street. "Put it down. Please, stop this." She didn't stop. I heard the gate creak open. My heart pounded louder than the sirens. I stepped onto my porch, unable to see her, but hearing everything. "You cost me my title, my money, my whole life," Deborah snarled, voice cracking with rage. I raised my hands slowly. "Deborah, this ends now. Put the gun down. Please." "You never should have moved here," she spat. "Blind men don't belong in nice places." I heard the safety click off. Scout lunged forward, barking, placing himself directly between us. The gunshot came a half-second later. I felt the bullet's wind, not its bite. I lived. She'd fired wide, startled by Scout's sudden lunge, her aim thrown off in panic. Police sirens screamed onto the street exactly then, red and blue lights flooding the darkness. "Drop the weapon. Drop it now," an officer shouted, voice sharp and absolutely commanding. Deborah, cornered, raised the gun again, this time toward the approaching officers themselves, unthinking. That's when the K9 unit was released, a German shepherd named Rex, trained for exactly this. Rex hit her full speed, jaws locking her forearm, the gun clattering harmlessly onto the pavement. Deborah screamed, collapsing under Rex's weight, finally, completely, powerless for the first time ever. Officers swarmed, cuffing her as Rex released on command, panting, standing guard over the scene. I sank onto my porch steps, Scout licking my trembling hands, both of us alive. Renee arrived minutes later, sobbing, wrapping her arms around me like she'd never let go. Officers found the recorded doorbell threat, the gun, the fraud folder together. Attempted murder. Weapons charges. Fraud. Embezzlement. The charges stacked against Deborah like falling dominoes. Forensic accountants found nearly $200,000 siphoned from HOA funds over years. Gerald, heartbroken but honest, testified fully against her, describing years of controlling, erratic behavior. Linda testified about the forged votes, the fake committee meetings, the buried complaints, everything. Faye and 2 other displaced families testified about years of targeted harassment and unjust fines. Sadie's articles were entered as supporting evidence, timestamps matching every single escalation perfectly. My recordings, Braille Boy, Prove It, the threats, the drunken rant, played in open courtroom. The prosecutor called it a textbook case of disability discrimination escalating into attempted violence. Deborah's own lawyer, watching the evidence pile up, quietly advised her to accept a plea deal. She refused, insisting she'd done nothing wrong, only protected community standards. The jury disagreed completely. Guilty on all counts: attempted assault, fraud, embezzlement, discriminatory harassment under federal law. The judge added an additional charge after learning she'd targeted 3 other vulnerable residents. 12 years, restitution of every stolen dollar, and a lifetime HOA leadership ban. Deborah wept in court, but nobody in that room felt a shred of sympathy left. Gerald filed for divorce the same week. He later apologized to me personally, in person. "I should have stopped her years ago," he said. "I'm sorry it took a gunshot." The HOA board dissolved entirely, replaced by an elected committee including Linda and, eventually, me. Fairview Meadows repealed over 300 outdated, unenforceable rules within the following 2 months. New bylaws included explicit disability protections, transparent voting records, and independent financial audits every year. The community, once fractured by fear, slowly began rebuilding trust, block party by block party. Faye planted a small memorial garden near my porch, calling it the place Scout stood guard. Scout received a small honorary medal from the county police department for his role that night. Rex, the K9 who took Deborah down, visited occasionally, and Scout somehow never barked at him. Renee joked that Scout and Rex were the real HOA board everyone should have trusted originally. I finally painted my mailbox post. I chose the wrong white on purpose, just because I could. Nobody complained. There was no clipboard left to complain with, no queen left to enforce it. Priya became a family friend, checking in monthly, proud of how the case had unfolded. Sadie's article series won a small regional journalism award for community accountability reporting that year. Deborah's Shell Landscaping Company had actually built 3 other HOAs across the county, undiscovered until now. Investigators reopened cases in 2 neighboring communities, uncovering similar patterns of fraud and harassment. It turned out Fairview Meadows hadn't been her only kingdom. It had simply been her last. I sat on my porch one evening, Scout's head on my knee, and finally exhaled fully. The community held a small ceremony renaming the clubhouse Fairview Commons, erasing her legacy quietly. We let fear run this place too long. Never again, neighbors. Linda, now board chair, implemented anonymous complaint channels so no future resident felt silenced alone. Gerald moved away eventually, starting over somewhere quiet, sending Renee a thank you card before he left. The restitution money slowly trickled back into community accounts, funding a proper accessible ramp system. Ironically, my old rejected wheelchair ramp became the blueprint for the neighborhood's new accessibility standard. I never got my sight back, and 18 months of my life were consumed by fear. I still flinch sometimes at footsteps on gravel, a small scar Deborah left that never fully faded. But I gained something too, a real community, real neighbors, and a dog who saved my life. 12 years behind bars couldn't return the sleep I lost, or the peace she stole first. Some victories cost you pieces of yourself you never fully get back, even when justice wins. Still, when I walk past my mailbox now, painted the wrong white, I smile every time. Scout still guides me down that same sidewalk, calmer now, no clipboard warriors waiting at the gate. Renee visits every Sunday and we sit on the porch, listening to a quiet, honest street. Faye's garden blooms every spring, right where Scout once stood between me and a bullet. Linda sends monthly newsletters now, transparent, boring, wonderful newsletters nobody ever has to fear reading. Priya still calls sometimes, just to check in, though the case closed a long while back. Sadie moved on to bigger stories, but she still visits Fairview Meadows for the annual block party. I testified once more, at the appeals hearing, when Deborah tried and failed to reduce her sentence. The judge, reviewing everything again, called her conduct a chilling abuse of unchecked small-scale power. I didn't cry that day. I simply stood, Scout beside me, and walked out into daylight. People ask if I forgive her. I tell them forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting danger. I remember. I stay careful. But I no longer live afraid on my own front porch. The K-9 unit that saved me, Rex, retired last year. His handler adopted him permanently, gratefully. I sent a donation to the K-9 program, the least I could do for the dog who mattered. Scout is older now too, grayer around the muzzle, still sharp, still fiercely loyal every single day. Some nights I still hear that gunshot in my sleep, a wind that never quite fully leaves. But mornings come anyway, coffee brewing, Scout's paws on the porch boards, birds in Faye's garden. Fairview Meadows isn't perfect. No community ever is. But it's honest now. That matters more. Deborah Whitfield writes letters from prison sometimes, unanswered, unopened, left in a drawer I rarely check. I don't need her apology. I have something better, a neighborhood that finally, truly, sees me. Years later, I learned Deborah's own mother had once been evicted by an HOA. Maybe that's why she became what she became. It doesn't excuse it. It just explains the shape. Understanding someone's wound doesn't mean handing them a weapon to wound others in return. I think about that sometimes, on quiet nights, without anger, just a tired kind of clarity. Renee says I've changed since that year, steadier, less afraid, more willing to speak up loudly. You found your voice, she told me once, right when you thought you'd lost the most. Losing my sight taught me to listen. Losing my peace taught me to fight, finally, for myself. The new HOA board meets monthly now, in daylight, doors open, minutes posted for anyone to read. No more secret votes. No more clipboards. No more knocks disguised as quiet acts of war. Sometimes new neighbors ask about the incident. I tell them the short version, the honest version. A woman tried to control everyone until the truth, finally, controlled her instead, completely, permanently. Scout still walks that same sidewalk every morning, calm now, sniffing Faye's garden, tail wagging softly. I stand on my porch some evenings, feeling sunlight I can't see but can still fully feel. The gate she once forced open stays locked now, a small quiet symbol of a war ended. I don't need to see the mailbox to know it's painted wrong, and I love that. Every fine she ever issued against me was formally voided, refunded, struck from every record. Every family she drove away received a public apology from the reformed HOA board, in writing. Fairview Meadows became, oddly, a case study in disability rights law seminars 2 counties over. Priya uses our case now, teaching younger lawyers how documentation quietly defeats even the loudest bully. I never asked to be anyone's lesson. I only asked to keep my home in peace. But if my story stops one more Deborah somewhere else, I suppose it was worth telling. Gerald sends a card every Christmas now, just a line, thinking of you both. Take care. I write back the same, simple, no grudges left to carry into another year, another season. Justice didn't erase what happened. It just made sure it couldn't happen again, not easily. Scout noses my hand some mornings, and I remember exactly why I never once considered leaving. A blind man and his dog stood their ground against a woman who ruled through fear. The dog who stopped a bullet became a neighborhood's quiet hero, forever etched into Fairview lore. The man who nearly lost everything became, instead, the reason everyone else finally felt safe. Deborah Whitfield remains in prison today, her name a warning whispered at new resident orientations. I remain here, painting my mailbox whatever shade I please, coffee warm, Scout curled at my feet. Some nights I still record my thoughts into an old audio file, a habit that saved me once. Never underestimate quiet people, I say into it now. We're just gathering evidence, patiently, calmly. Faye laughs when I tell her that line. You should put that on a plaque, she says. Maybe I will. Right by the garden, right where Scout once stood between me and danger. The cost was real, months of fear, a courtroom, a bullet's wind against my cheek, forever remembered. The victory was real too, a home reclaimed, a community rebuilt, a bully finally, fully, stopped. I think that's the truest ending any of us can ask for after a fight like that. Not perfect peace. Just honest peace, hard-won, imperfect and entirely, finally, mine to keep. Scout barks once at a passing car, then settles back down, tail thumping the porch boards softly. I smile, unseeing, sunlight on my face, safe at last on a street that finally sees me clearly.